New York City in the 1960s was a central hub for artists, poets, and musicians from all walks of life. Many nightclubs and cafes gave birth to some of the music industry's biggest artists by letting them have their first shot at performing in front of crowds. One particular composer took a completely different approach at gaining attention by busking in front of the public at 53rd or sometimes 54th and 6th Avenue, just blocks away from the CBS building. Known to most as the homeless Viking of 6th Avenue, this is the story of Moondog. Louis Thomas Hardin grew up throughout the Midwest during the early 1900s. As a young child, his father would take him to the Arapaho Sundance, where he played the tom-tom made from buffalo skin. This form of tribal drumming would go on to influence his musical drumming style later on. In his early teens, Hardin played drums in his high school band until tragically losing his eyesight from an incident with a dynamite cap. As awful as this loss was, it didn't stop Hardin from retraining his ears and continuing to play music. Hardin moved to New York in the early 1940s, where he befriended classical and jazz composers such as Igor Stravinsky, Leonard Bernstein, Benny Goodman, or Charlie Parker, just to name a few. By the late 1940s, Hardin had established himself as a musician who would perform his self-composed music and poetry to the public. To his friends and fans in the jazz scene, he was known as Moondog, a name he came up with based on a past pet dog he owned who would howl at the moon. But to many passerbys, he was just known as the Viking of 6th Avenue. While performing, Moondog would play using several of his created instruments such as the huss or the trimba. He would play ambient percussion sounds in what he referred to as snake-time rhythm. His odd choice of garments stemmed from his fascination with Nordic mythology, and it was said that he mostly wore the Viking helmet to eliminate any misconceptions that he was dressed as Jesus. Moondog's bizarre appearance and unique street shows had attracted several well-known musicians, composers, and poets during this time in New York. More specifically in the 1960s during the Beatnik era, Allen Ginsberg, Philip Glass, William S. Burroughs, Steve Reich, Ravi Shankar, Joan Baez, and even Janis Joplin were friends of Moondog and were highly influenced by his music and poetry. Meanwhile, the upper-class businessmen and women would pass him by daily in Upper Manhattan on 6th Avenue, assuming he was just protesting the war in Vietnam. Many had no idea that he was actually a classical composer who had produced several records spanning from the 1940s and 60s.
I even recorded with Julie fucking Andrews.
As time went on, Moondog felt that he didn't quite fit in the era of modern-day music within America, so he eventually decided to leave the US and move to Germany, where he lived out the rest of his days until his death in 1999. Now if you're just sitting there thinking his music has a cinematic feel to it, you're not far off. His music has been credited in several films. I mean, his symphonies can virtually score anything, really. In fact, here's a video I edited of one of Moondog's symphonies backing in the inauguration of Donald Trump. Till this day, he may not be a well-known American composer, and by the looks of him, he may just seem like some crazy homeless busker, and yet in his lifetime he had written more than 80 symphonies. So the moral of the story is, don't judge a book by its cover. Their accomplishments may surprise you.